Rodney Reeder. I'm currently live in Washington State in United States, and I'm here just to talk to you about my death experience. Um, 5 years ago, back in July of 2017, I was working as a longshoreman just south of Seattle, and we had been loading several barges. One in particular was a barge that was being loaded with 50-ton steel pilings. These are 4 foot in diameter, but again, they can be up to 50 feet long. And we had been loading this barge all week long um, as new pilings were showing up to be loaded onto it. And we had a crane for assistance to. My job was to rig these pilings to the crane and then help guide it over, and then a crew would lower it down onto a steel barge on top of dunnage. And we were on the last day of loading this barge. We had completed another barge in the morning, and we just come back from lunch, and we were this barge was now set up to load up, and I rigged up the first steel piling, but we were down for two bodies that day, so we were 2 men short. And there, so I rigged up the piling, guided it over above the barge, and then one of the crewmen called me to help come up onto the stack to help lower this thing down and set it into place. Extra duty, hot, warm day, it was about 80 some degrees. And so I climbed up the ladder, got up on top, lowered it down, and then I looked at my watch, and it was about 1 o'clock, turning 1 o'clock. I then proceeded to get onto the ladder, top rungs of this big steel ladder. And if anyone's been on the end of a table and experienced where someone hits the table aside of you and you get jarred away or pushed off, well, that's what happened to me. So either a tugboat or another barge struck the barge that I was on and the steel ladder, and I separated from the stack about 25 some feet up in the air. Which then everything slowed down. The sensitivity, and people talk about this, and I've heard in other reports, they feel where, again, time slows. You see everything slowly happening, and that was happening to me. It felt like I was forever trying to grab onto that steel beam that was ahead of me. I could feel the the rust particles on the steel barge, sorry, on that steel piling, slowly as my gloves and I were trying to get a hold, and I kept looking slowly going down. And then everything just slowed down even further, and as I was starting to face towards the ground, I basically just said, "Oh, S," and that was it. I was then pulled out of my body at about the 45, like a pop. And the good thing I don't remember because my body and my face collided with that steel ladder as it struck the floor of the steel barge. So I was saved from that part. But I had gone at the time into what people call the void. I was in complete darkness, no body, just the consciousness. If anyone ever has been into the bottom of their blankets in bed or in a warm sleeping bag, that's what it felt like. It was comfort. There was no concern. There was nothing of worry about death or anything. I was just comfortable, all warm and cozy in that nice blanket of darkness. But and as time I'm looking around and just looking at all just in peace. No, there was no time, no effort, no worry. And then all of a sudden, just like a lightning bolt strike formed the light, which then I proceeded to go through. And as I came out of the light, well, I was in the light, but I came into uh, a gravel path in a tree grove. And it was a very narrow path. Again, no body, just the full consciousness going down this path, winding down through. Little did I know that I was on the side of a mountain. I come out onto a mountain ledge, looking over a mountain valley in a place of an earth that was Earth-like, but not Earth. Absolutely beautiful. Deep, wide mountain valley. And down below was 3 levels. And then on the bottom level was, I'd say, thousands of beings. I'll say beings. I don't necessarily say human, but beings. Then on the second level was a large golden portal, rectangle shaped. Some people have seen this in reference. They'll tune the halls of, or the gate, or the halls of Valhalla, or they'll see a doorway. You may be able to see it on YouTube or another show with Vikings by chance. I've seen something very similar to what I saw, but to me it was a golden portal. And then on the third and the higher level was a jeweled marbled halls. Looked like the Greek Parthenon. Marble, but glittering with jewels. And as I stood there again, I was on the precipice. I was looking out on all this, and being a hang glider pilot in my life, I was comfortable with heights, but I felt myself gliding down into this green, lush field that aligned this whole valley. And I laid down amongst into the grass. And it's almost like where the grass was like recharging me with the love coming from it. At this point, everything was all knowing. Again, no body, but I'm just laying there amongst the grass. I was literally looking into the grass at a microcellular level. I was actually, you could see the cells moving around inside the grass. Again, taking this camera, I felt again like I was being recharged. The love in the whole area, is again with the light, was like a liquid love. It like coated me. You could feel texture. It was so intense. It's not like the love that we have here in this physical presence. But the love had weight, it had texture, you could feel it coming around you. And it's a love of a child times a million plus. It's hardly, you can't describe it still with words. But the only way I could say is like liquid love, because it coats you. And again, just laying there in the grass, just was contemplating, just relaxing for the longest time. Again, just don't know what I'd gone through, but it was just, again, like a recharge. Like this was here preparing me for something else or anything I'd gone through. And then I started to feel, and again, time was no essence, but I felt that I shouldn't be here. Something's not right. But I've never felt this absolute sheer bliss. It was beyond bliss. No pain whatsoever. Again, it just, it's hard to fathom and put into words, but it was just there. But this silver mist started coming through the grass and approaching me. And as the silver mist reached me, 7 light beings came out and surrounded me. They were the brightest bluish white light that I've ever seen. You really can't see facial structures. It was the best way to describe it, if anyone has seen the movie The Knowing. At the very end, this boy and father, the boy was taken up by these angelic beings or stuff, and that's the closest way I can describe them. And I didn't see this movie until after my death experience, and it gave me absolute chills when I saw it, because these beings were like it, but they were the brightest white. It was super, super bright, just surrounding me. And then they surrounded me, and I don't know how long I talked with them or what I did with them, but we knew each other, but they were 7+ foot, and there was about 7 of them. And then as they were around me, all of a sudden I felt like they had placed me in this little tube, like I was placed in like a straw almost. And I'm looking up at them as I'm in this vortex, basically. And then I started proceeded to go down. I was basically put sort of what you would say feet first, But even though, again, I had no body still, but I was looking up as these beings, as I started to go down and be shot down this rainbow vortex. Some people call it, I forget their term for it, but again, it was a rainbow vortex, or some people call it, they talk about the rainbow bridge. Well, today this was where I was going down. And I kept going down, down, and as I was still looking, I could still see the beings, especially there was one taller one of all the seven of them was looking straight at me. And you could almost feel the love that it was still sending out to me. And I was crying because I was like almost going, I left this place, perfection, bliss. I'm going down, no, 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 as I'm going down. And I don't know how long I traveled, but it was a long time. And all of a sudden, even though it was still no body, it felt that the right side of my face started to close up like this. And all I could see was out of what would be considered my left eye. And then the pain started to come in. Oh my goodness, the pain. Oh, excruciating. Oh, painful. It was just, imagine every single tooth in your mouth going off with the worst toothache you've ever had, just coming into my body. And then I kept going down, down into this tube. And all of a sudden, I was slammed into my meat sack body. And I'm in there for a second and just disoriented because, again, I came from basically spirit form back into the flesh. And it was very uncomfortable. I mean, it took a little bit to associate, and all of a sudden I felt like my eyes opening up visually. And here I had all these other beings, humans around me at this time, staring at me and open up, and they're freaking out that I'm alive. They had taken my body and put it on a flat and had brought over a loader and had lifted my body off the barge and had brought it into the home office about 60, 70 yards away, and it put me onto the wood floor. They had never called 911, no ambulance. I had no medical resuscitation. But I was dizzy. They were just freaking out that I'm alive. He's alive. He's alive. And they then immediately picked me up dead weight. I'm 260 pounds at the time. They picked me up dead weight, and I felt a screaming pain in my left shoulder. And then they had brought me and put me into a small car. When I was in this vehicle, when the manager had come and was running to the driver's side, I happened to look at my watch with my left eye because I could feel blood I couldn't see out of my right eye. And I looked down, and it was 1:35 on my watch. And then we proceeded to drive to the local hospital. And when we arrived, we didn't even go into the emergency room. We parked outside in the parking lot and then walked in to the hospital. Again, no looking on my right eye. And then I was brought up into the emergency room area. They threw the insurance card down and they left me there. And then I had the onrush of all the medical teams coming in and grabbing me, and then immediately throwing a collar around my neck, and then started doing all the procedures. It was found out that they did all the scans that 3/4 of my face was broken. I had a brain bleed, and then shortly, within a couple hours, they had loaded me up and brought me to a different hospital that could deal with the issues that I had. So that was, the interesting deal of going there. And now when I was at the second hospital, they did additional tests on me, but they were amazed that I was taking 1/3 of the normal, what they considered amount of painkiller that someone in my condition would be taking. There was a woman who had been brought into a room next to me her husband had taken a baseball bat to her face. She was crying and screaming, and then they're trying to calm her down. I said, "Please, I know, ma'am, you're in pain, but there's a guy next to you who's 10 times worse than you." And so here I am laying in here hearing this, going, "Great." But it's hard to describe to the doctors. They had doctors come to me and said, "Man, you're a badass. You're not crying. You're not doing anything else." And how do you tell them that I was still connected to that love on the other side? That was what was holding off the pain. I still felt that connection. And that's how powerful that love is. I mean, here I go from being, a tough guy working out on the docks and, you know, picking up iron and holding stuff all day and, to all of a sudden experience this absolute love and joy and bliss. And, it took so much because when, especially you're back in this physical body, you're trying to relate to everything that you just experienced. And again, I can't tell you how much time. I could have been there for years in that short time. Again, I was dead for literally for a half hour. No brain. I mean, besides the brain bleed, I didn't have any issues with their part. I spent time getting my face repaired. As you can see, I had um, uh, memory training. I had to relearn to walk a little bit first, and I still have issues currently. But I've had so many things that have happened. You know, what I feel again, there's like we have connections. Where when I came into the body, I mean, it was a huge fuse. It's not where you wake up from a dream and it's just their part. I actually like fuse where you fuse in, where it's like you literally into that altered state into this state, but I did not miss anything. I literally just came in, but that love was still attached to me. And I said this when this connection, it's different how it connects to your heart, it connects to other parts of you, and you know that you're being protected and you're guided, and all those energies that was happening on the other side, you're still feeling the connection. Now I'm going to tell you a quick other story. About a year and a half later, after my first two surgeries, I happened to get this weird feeling. I had to go working with composting worms. All right, I was working with my garden because that was one of the things that helped me in my healing. And I found a worm farm about 20 some miles away. And I went there and drove there. I felt this composure. Compelled to go. I had to go. And I went there and found the place. And while I was getting my worms, I started having conversations with two of the workers at the worm farm. And as I'm talking this, I had one of them come up to me, and I just felt an interesting feeling about him. And he came up to me and he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're connected. You died, didn't you? And then you died, but you're connected, and you always will be." And lo and behold, if anyone has been into or seen pictures of Saint Germain by chance, this was Saint Germain in the flesh, telling me and showing me this. And I'm going to talk about chills, and I just got chills right now, like crazy reading of this feeling. And then within a couple years later on, I found about the I am affirmations a little bit, and then I found about working with Saint Germain. And then I saw the pictures of him with the etheric pictures of Saint Germain, and I about freaked out. I was like, "Oh my goodness, that was him. I was connected," and that's why he was telling me I'm connected. Still show that we still carry that connection all the way through. We still are, even right now, maybe in a different body form, or our higher mental body is still attached to that part, connected there. But it gave enough in the physical form to give me comfort that reduced that I did not need to have the medical pharmaceutical products coming into my body. And it was trying to keep me away from as much as I needed, just to keep me comfortable, but not let pharmaceutical stuff affect what I was experiencing or wanted to affect my body. This until a few weeks later that I may have talked to someone, the first one about saying I was gone, but when I talked to one of the coworkers of mine connected back with, he hardly wanted to talk. He was so scared, and that was my worst day I ever had. You were dead. you were gone. I mean, there was no heartbeat, no nothing. I was dead. So that's why they never called no ambulance, no 911, no nothing. Because first they were that I was dead. It's not where I could have a dream. There was no heartbeat, there was no brain. I was gone. I mean, they basically loaded my dead body onto a flat and rolled me over and put me on there, you know, and then put me into the office. That's why they were freaking out when I came back because they were trying to figure out what to do, you know. And then when I came back without any resuscitation, I didn't have a fibrillator or anything else to me and stuff. Here's the freaky thing is, through this experience, I've had much of what I experienced the other side manifest on this side after the event. Like I saw these gravel paths. I have seen on TV and other shows that golden portal show up. I have seen the Parthenon and other parts that they've talked or people have talked about, the library knowledge or whatever that being that building was. The Golden City could be, but it's where, and then also with the Ascended Masters or other beings out there that I may have experienced or talked with. So when I came up to this stuff, I was gone. I mean, it's not where people can say, I was gone for 5 minutes or I came out of body or they thought, something happened. I was literally, killed from blunt force trauma. Also, what happened was besides my face, I had my left pectoral major was severed completely from my shoulder, and that was not discovered till 6 months later. And all the other trauma I had, broken ribs, broken nose, face. I mean, just it was bad. And so you describe to people, you just memorize that, or that was a vision. I'm like, I was dead for a half hour. I saw my watch before it was 1 o'clock. When I was thrown in the car, it was 1:35. So at least a half hour gone. So you tell me how I'm able to come up with that from a little dream or other parts. It wasn't. And I felt that pop when I left the body. I didn't linger along. I was shot right up to, other place. There's other people have talked about entities. There's different levels and parts where they had to go through before they got where I was at. I went right up there after I came out of the void. But, there's so many people and I've come across others who have talked or seen some of these same things, as well as in when I got into it from Saint Germain and a lot of his teachings of the I Am discourses that Godfrey Ray King, who wrote back in the 1930s, talked about. Chills going, but you had these connections, and it's just where you're more open to it. But as us as a knowing, but we start affecting more and more other people with our light or our radiation that's coming off of us. Either healing light that we have or more connections that we opened up to, and it's feeling this. So there's so much going on that, I tell people again too, be open to this. People, there's human discord, human creation that is trying to block a lot of what's going on. We create our own discord. And when you start to put your attention on the divine, put yourself on to my presence, which is in my heart. When you start putting your focus on that, things start happening more and you become more of what, God beings that we are. So it's, I just tell people, be open, be truthful, but you will know. And when you talk to a person who's had one of these experiences, that's why I say it's a death experience. Some people, I use NDE just so other people who are just aware of this, they know that term. But to us who have had this experience, it was a death experience. We died. We know we died.